When I first met Mr. Mabie in English 9 freshman year, I didn't know what to expect. Standing in the front of the classroom was a heavily bearded man wearing sandals, wielding his poopstick pointer with an unapologetically crude sense of humor. Yet, over the past 4 years, I have gotten to know Mr. Mabie as a teacher, a mentor, a master chess player, an excellent musician, a literature enthusiast, and someone who has a never-ending supply of knowledge on literally everything. He acts as a role model for our class and has impacted the whole group down to individual students. Whether you've had him as an English teacher or not, all of us sitting here at least recognize him as a respected figure. Many of us have learned the heavy-handed lessons from him, like, what really is a table? Others have benefited from life advice from Papa Doug on how to choose their spouses in the future. As for me, Mr. Mabie changed my perspective on life. You walk into his classroom expecting to learn about sentence structures and essay writing, but leave it having learned more about yourself and what's around you. He teaches his students to question everything and to truly think deeply about the world around us. It's funny because he's like a 5-year-old child and an 80-year-old wise man all encompassed into one person. But myself and many others owe him for playing a huge role in who we are today. So today, on behalf of the class of 2015, it is my great honor to introduce Mr. Douglas Mabie as this year's commencement speaker. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Ragini. That's an amazing introduction. Parents, family members, friends, colleagues, administrators, members of the school board, and of course, the Singapore American School class of 2015. I first want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm both humbled and frankly surprised to be given the chance. You see, I was never a very good high school student, so finding myself speaking to you tonight seems me a little bit ironic. While my presence on this stage might suggest that I'm doing something right as a teacher, or at least faking it well, I am concerned about my job security. In recent years, trends to embrace 21st century learning have pushed schools to de-emphasize the humanities to make way for science, technology, and engineering. According to Washington Post columnist and CNN host Fareed Zakaria, the number of students declaring English as their major at U.S. universities has plummeted 75% in recent years. And in a piece for The Atlantic just a few months back, seasoned high school English teacher Michael Godsey warned that our species, English teachers that is, may be going extinct. He remarks that a master's in English literature doesn't much matter these days and writes, "I don't remember the last time I've attended or even heard of any professional development training focused on my specific subject matter. It seems that we don't need mastery of our content anymore, just how to teach it, whatever the it is. Heck, you can always Google the it. Indeed, the refrain these days is that tomorrow's workers need to know how to do stuff, not know stuff. These trends directly affect you, class of 2015. A few months back, after proposing a $300 million cut to the University of Wisconsin system, Governor and presidential hopeful Scott Walker toyed with changing the university's century-old mission statement so that references to the search for truth and the struggle to improve the human condition would be replaced by an express concern for the state's workforce needs. And to be sure, many college tour guides these days sell how their schools will spirit young students like you through science, tech, engineering, and business hoops efficiently so that you can quickly start earning lots of loot. And so, for fear of being tossed in the dustbin and replaced by Big Hero 6 or C-3PO or an operating system that sounds like Scarlett Johansson, I began emptying my brain of all the useless stuff, which for years clogged up my thinking like plaque in an artery. I dumped Plato's dialogues and the Homeric epics, huge drains on this limited hard drive. Freud and Maslow, trashed. Paradise Lost, well, lost. I deleted hundreds of song lyrics, poems, and reams of useless 80s pop culture knowledge. I junked the Picassos, Monets, and Van Goghs that cluttered the walls of my mind. Further, to keep me marketable, I began spending as much time as humanly possible sitting in front of a screen on the internet. Through Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter, I've created an empty vessel, made a space, as it were, where great things could happen. And you know what? The winds of inspiration began blowing across the furrowed plains of my mind, and a seed fell, one whose roots began taking hold all the way back in the early weeks of this school year. It was at the annual SAS Welcome Back to School Assembly where your executive president, Callum Nesbitt, delivered a speech in which he proposed the following, and I quote, "There will be so many times this year that you'll be faced with a choice. Should I choose my relationships or should I choose to be efficient? Now, all the pressures of this world will tell you to choose efficiency. Challenge yourself to choose relationships," Callum said. Choose to spend a little more time talking to your teacher. Choose to spend a little more time not sitting next to your friends, staring at a screen at lunch, but looking at each other. Choose to appreciate your parents and your siblings while you still get them every day. Oh, my poor misguided Callum, I thought. Talk of inefficiency? Choose to turn away from our screens? What has gotten into this crazy lad? Anyway, all of Callum's tech paranoia began bouncing about inside my big vacant head, and then it hit me. I realized that my pursuits of philosophical and spiritual truths were and had always been a silly waste of time, a ridiculous diversion. And with this moment of clarity, I realized what I really wanted. I want to be rich. I mean, really stinking filthy rich. Now, you may remember former SAS English teacher and writer Andrew Hallam, who published the much ballyhooed Millionaire Teacher. Now, I consider Andrew a good friend, but his advice has not moved me past the thousandaire teacher threshold. All of the Vanguard mutual funds in this world aren't going to bring the kind of wealth I need right now. So, with the burn to earn, I continued surfing waves of data until one day I tumbled onto the 2013 word of the year, which, as you may remember, was selfie. And with that word defining a generation came the single most important invention of the new millennium, the selfie stick. It occurred to me, though, that there is one fundamental problem with the selfie stick, and it's this. You lose the use of at least one hand while capturing unforgettable images of you. I saw an opportunity, and so tonight I'm pouncing. I understand that this occasion might be a bit awkward for, well, a sales pitch, but here it goes. Ladies, gentlemen, children of tomorrow, I give you the app that is going to change the world and bring me riches that I will pass on to my grandchildren. It's called, you ready for it? The Selfie Crown. And here's the catchline, see if you like it. Finally, looking at you will no longer get in the way of looking at you. Or alternatively, isn't it time you started being king of you? Now, while limited by time and budget, I was able to develop a prototype. Let's take a look. Consider the sleek, elegant lines, the ergonomically designed visor, the unobtrusive electronic eyes that take in the total you, the perfect hands-free self-surveillance. Folks, I give you the selfie crown. So listen, I decided to pilot my selfie crown on my recent family trip to Laos. Here's a great shot of me visiting a temple in Luang Prabang. This is a cute shot of me and my kids riding elephants. And here is me and my wife ascending the spectacular Kwangsi waterfall. Just look at me and all I was able to do while still looking at me. The market is hungry for this product. I'm searching for some venture capital. So, if you're interested, talk to me after the commencement, okay? Now, I have to pause here because something's bothering me. In truth, I'm not being completely honest with you. I'm sorry for this Dr. Phil moment, but despite my deepest efforts to expunge all of that pesky declarative knowledge, All that cluttering content, Democritus, Mishima, the Mayans, the Great Rift Valley, Lucy, and Ricky, I've just not been able to do it. And as I look over my life, take an internal selfie, if you will, maybe all that stuff, on second thought, isn't all bad. In fact, perhaps as my classics professor, Roy Arthur Swanson, used to say, the mythos, the mental material of this world, is the blanket that we toss over an invisible truth so that we can see it. You know, those realities that hide in plain sight. Let me show you what I mean. When the nun first placed my baby on my chest at Holy Cross Orphanage in Delhi back in 2004, I sat in that musty room recalling John Irving's novel, The Cider House Rules, and how the orphan Homer Wells would grow up to do both the Lord's work and the devil's work. When I listened to my dear friend and brave Vietnam vet Al back home in Wisconsin share the nightmares that haunt him regularly, I can't not think of Wilfred Owen's war poem, Dulce et decorum est, or the dutiful Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita. When I wade through the commercialism of Orchard Road malls, I feel nothing but irritation at Christmas time. Yet when I sit with my family watching It's a Wonderful Life, my heavy heart thumps out of my chest and I squeeze my 3 children until they complain. While my wife and I watched the Twin Towers collapse on her birthday in 2001, we clutched each other and we wept. And I couldn't keep the words of Mark Twain out of my mind. As Huck Finn sees the 2 conmen, the Duke and the King, tarred, feathered, and carried through the streets, he notes, with an innocence only a child can know, it was a dreadful thing to see. Human beings can be awful cruel to one another. When I sat with my dying mom in the hospice, feeding her French toast, singing songs, telling stories, laughing and crying, Dylan Thomas's poem, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, visited me often. And now, as I look at you lovely parents and you beautiful kids, and think of the bittersweet pain that you're gonna feel when you part this fall, I think of Charles Dickens' amazing novel, Great Expectations. It's when the young Pip heads off to London to become a gentleman, leaving behind his sister and the humble, honest Joe who raised him. Dickens writes this: I walked away at a good pace, thinking it was easier to go than I'd supposed it would be. I whistled and made nothing of going. I'd been so innocent and little there, and all beyond was so unknown and great, that in a moment, with a strong heave and sob, I broke into tears. And listen to this. Heaven knows we need never be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth, overlying our hard hearts. Please, let's not impetuously tear off the pretty wrapping paper that packages our mysterious lives. Rather, enjoy the twirled ribbons and the glossy sheen and wonder at the anticipation of what lies within. Let's recall and play in the stories, the histories, the fun facts, the supposedly pointless knowledge. All this useless beauty, as Elvis Costello calls it, provides the lenses through which we see the world. Indeed, my favorite daily rituals involve sitting with family and friends at the lunch table or the dining table, coaxing out old songs, books, and films, and weaving them into memories as we roar with laughter. I mean, why else are we here? Listen, class of 2015, this is important. This isn't your teacher talking to you right now, this is Papa Doug. There are 3 certainties about learning, real learning, that you need to take with you as you head off into the world. First, real learning is not efficient. Callum was 100% correct in his speech. I fear that having come through our well-oiled, hard-driving school, some of you might have missed this. These days, one sees the attempt to grease the path frictionless all around us. In recent years, education has been flooded by thinkers and theorists, many who spend very little time in actual classrooms with actual students, gathering data and attempting to map curricular worlds so that learning can be conveniently and comfortably depicted and deciphered. Meaningful learning, however, involves so much more than bits and bytes. Be skeptically, cautiously aware of machines and machine-like thinking that are increasingly holding sway in our lives. We'd be wise to revisit what the Polish-American philosopher Alfred Korzybski said to the American Association for the Advancement of Science all the way back in 1931. The map is not the territory. Switch off the GPS and stray from the map. Yes, doing so is inefficient, but also so much fun. Further, read a lot. That there now exists a commonly understood abbreviation, TLDR, too long didn't read, which seems to celebrate illiteracy, should trouble us all. The more you read, the more you know. The more you know, the more you read. And reading takes time. It is not an efficient activity. If you do not read, and I mean really read the world deeply, you are in danger of winding up vacuous and shallow. Don't do that. Second, and related, much of the best learning is done in solitude. What I'm saying is not educationally fashionable right now, to be sure. Students and teachers today are pushed relentlessly to team up, collaborate, and be constantly connected. Hey, I'm all for working together, but we've lost sight of how important being alone is to critical thinking. Psychologist Sherry Turkle argues that solitude is a good thing, suggesting we go so far as to create sacred spaces where we unplug. Warning of the mistaken belief that one can multitask effectively and still participate in meaningful conversation, technology writer and NYU professor Clay Shirky asks his students to refrain from using laptops, tablets, and phones in classes. He reminds students that real learning is often a solitary slog, requiring focused concentration and delayed gratification. Jesus had his 40 days and nights in the desert. Mohammed his time in the cave of Hira prior to the revelation before the archangel Gabriel. Joseph Smith found himself on Mount Cumorah before the angel Moroni. The Buddha sat by himself under the peepal tree when he gained clarity. And not just spiritual figures. Consider our philosophical and political heroes as well. Think of Dante Alighieri, exiled from Florence, and his divine comedy that resulted from it. Think of Henry David Thoreau, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. sitting in jail, but also the writings that emerged from their solitude. I worry that our addiction to staying always connected and the electronic narcotics that allow us to do so are, ironically, disconnecting us from our most important collaborator, ourselves. And finally, real learning is uncomfortable. Now, believe it or not, colleagues, students, friends, and even my family tell me I have a knack for making people feel uncomfortable. I get that, sort of. In truth, though, discomfort guides much of my teaching and all of my learning. Trust me when I say that you are not impressionable, primed for the transformative educational moment until you have destabilized yourself, until you truly own that you don't know something and are willing to look outside yourself to explore that mystery. If you want to take the most eye-opening selfie you can, point the camera away from yourself. Spiritual awakenings, artistic revelations, and I dare say, even scientific innovations are, like Sylvia Plath's inspiration, the children of disquieting muses. Many of you already know what I mean. You took the classes at SAS where amazing teachers like Eric Burnett or Mark Gugisberg got into your head and annoyed you with a new philosophy, an historical narrative, or a dissonant idea that disagreed with what you thought you knew. Give those boys some applause, please. Think of Fred Crawford and his vexing physics riddles. After Sailor Craig irritated you with math problems, he then pushed you, panicked, before the student body to sing a song. Clark with his poetry, Devins with her music, Schultz with his drama, and van der Linden with her dance drove you to express yourself through voice and body on stage before staring masses. Terrifying moments like these, and like this, are the most valuable teachers you will ever encounter. And the more that you seek them out and face them, the fuller your lives will be. These are the crucibles where real learning happens. The highly produced images on educational banners and in publications, those are the aftermath, the fuzzy reflection of real learning, learning that began with uncomfortable, incessant irritation. Let me finish with this, and thank you for your patience. I really love you as a group. Kids, I mean. I'm happiest when I'm in the circle of my classroom desks with you pushing me sloppily through my teaching and making me uncomfortable. Sonia Seth, daring me to bore her lest she wander the hall with smartphone in hand for 10 minutes. Justin Smith and his deadpan facetious glance suggesting, explain yourself, maybe. Nadine Fuller, quietly demanding I teach her something about writing. And Gabe Zink, who looked up at me one day last year and demanded to know whether I was happy, whether I practiced what I preached while I tried to explain the basic tenets of existentialism, among them the notion that you define what your essence is to be, and then be it. What about you, he asked, as if picking a fight. Are you happy? I paused as the frames of my life flipped before me. I travel, I teach, I sing, I father, I love, and I learn every day. Yes, Gabe, I am happy. And I want so badly for you to be happy too. Now go be happy. Thank you, and congratulations to the Singapore American School Class of 2015 on this special list.